The Empire of Brazil, the forgotten American monarchy. In the 19th century, while most of the Americas were becoming republics, one nation chose a different path. Brazil became an empire, not just briefly, but for nearly 70 years. And during that time, it became one of the most stable and influential nations in the Western Hemisphere. This is the story of the Brazilian Empire. It all began in 1808. At that time, Brazil was not a country. It was a colony of Portugal. But everything changed when Napoleon Bonaparte invaded Portugal. Facing invasion, the Portuguese royal family made a shocking decision. They fled to Brazil. For the first time in history, a European monarchy moved its capital to a colony. Rio de Janeiro became the seat of the Portuguese Empire, and Brazil was no longer just a colony. It became the center of power. In 1821, after Napoleon's defeat, King João VI returned to Portugal, but he left his son behind in Brazil, Prince Pedro. Portugal wanted Brazil to return to colonial status, but Brazilians had tasted autonomy, and they didn't want to go backward. On September 7, 1822, beside the Ipiranga River, Prince Pedro declared, "Independence or death." Brazil was now independent, but instead of becoming a republic, it became an empire. Pedro became Emperor Dom Pedro I. Unlike the violent revolutions in Spanish America, Brazil's independence was relatively peaceful. The empire adopted a constitution in 1824. It created a constitutional monarchy. There was an emperor, but there was also a parliament. This balance helped maintain stability in a continent filled with coups and civil wars. However, Dom Pedro I's reign was short. Political tensions and economic struggles forced him to abdicate in 1831. He left the throne to his 5-year-old son, Dom Pedro II. Because he was too young to rule, Brazil entered a regency period. It was unstable. Rebellions erupted in several provinces. The empire almost fractured. But in 1840, at just 14 years old, Pedro II was declared of age. He took the throne, and his reign would define the empire. Dom Pedro II ruled for nearly 50 years. Under him, Brazil experienced stability, economic growth, and modernization. Railroads expanded. Telegraphs connected distant regions, education improved, and Brazil became a respected diplomatic power. Pedro II himself was known as an intellectual monarch. He spoke multiple languages, he supported science, he corresponded with thinkers around the world. Unlike many monarchs, he was admired for his modesty. But there was a contradiction at the heart of the empire: slavery. Brazil was the last country in the Western world to abolish slavery. The economy depended heavily on enslaved labor, especially in coffee plantations. Throughout the 19th century, pressure grew to end it. Finally, in 1888, Princess Isabel, acting as regent, signed the Golden Law. Slavery was abolished. It was a historic moment, but it came at a cost. The powerful landowning elites felt betrayed. The empire lost critical political support. Only 1 year later, in 1889, the military staged a coup. Without violence, without public uprising, Dom Pedro II was deposed. Brazil became a republic. The imperial family was exiled to Europe. And just like that, the empire ended. Unlike other fallen monarchs, Pedro II did not resist. He accepted exile quietly. He reportedly said, "If it is for the good of Brazil, I am ready." Many Brazilians later saw him as a symbol of dignity and stability. Even today, historians debate, was the empire better than the republic that followed? During the empire, Brazil had unity. It avoided fragmentation. It built institutions. It maintained territorial integrity, but it also delayed democratic participation and prolonged slavery. The Empire of Brazil remains one of the most unique political experiments in the Americas, a monarchy in the New World, a royal court in the tropics, an empire born not from conquest, but from relocation and negotiation. Its legacy still shapes modern Brazil, in its institutions, in its borders, and in its historical memory. History often remembers revolutions, but sometimes stability tells the more surprising story, and Brazil's empire is one of them.